Welcome, everyone, to Watch Challenge. On each episode, we challenge ourselves to find and watch a film of a particular type and then report back the results to each other and you fine listeners as well. My name is Aaron Spears.
And I'm Mike Wentz. This episode's challenge is Spike Lee films. And today we are joined by a special guest, filmmaker Robert Banks.
Hello.
Hey, Robert. Thanks for coming on, Robert.
I'm so not used to doing podcasts.
Oh, it's okay.
Thanks for having me on board, though. Thank you. I'm honored, actually. I'm honored.
I think we mentioned you on quite a few episodes, so it's good to have you on to get some of your takes.
Yeah, I know. I've heard you guys have had some really cool podcasts, different topics. Some of them are like, right up my alley too. So it's great to be part of this finally for a change. It's like, wow, I'm crossing the threshold with you guys. So, will I be worthy? That's the question. Am I worthy to be here? So,
and I've told Aaron a couple times that you tend to sometimes criticize some of my picks, like in a friendly way. Like I should probably expand some of my horizons a little bit.
And it's not just you, Mike. Just a lot of the people that we know in Cleveland. I mean, the people that know me. Some of them say I'm a total film snob and everything, and that's all open for debate. And it's a lot of it has to do with the fact that there's a lot of genres that I've been into for the last 40, 50 years since I was a kid. I'm watching movies forever. And so, but now there's a whole generation of film goers now in Cleveland. And I won't say any names, but Mike, you know a lot of them, and all of them talk about genres of filmmakers, directors, and yet no one never ever talks to me about this stuff. And then when I hear about it, it's always after the fact. Case in point, the Cinema Wasteland, was it? They did a casting. It was the reunion from Motel Hell, and Kevin Conner, the director, was there, and no one said jack to me. There's no profanity in this.
Oh, you're fine. Yeah.
I was upset because he's one of my favorite filmmakers, and I was like, why didn't someone tell me? I would have gone to that because I'm not into conventions, but there are certain filmmakers I will go out of my way to meet, and he's one of them. I would have, but nobody even acknowledged the fact that he was there because people don't know, because people here only know one thing about a film or genre. If there's certain, whatever you want to call it, certain fanboy thing, whatever. But it's just there's a lot of people that love movies here don't like the whole aspect of it. And it's just, there's so many filmmakers or actors or designers or effects people, cinematographers, laundry list 10 miles long of how I've experienced that in the last 40 years. And especially in the last 20 years since the internet has been the standard. So anyway, that's just me. I bitch and moan a lot.
That's all right.
I am the bitchiest guy in Cleveland when it comes to like, maybe it's because I'm getting old too. I'm up there. So,
well, I think one of the reasons why we thought you would be appropriate for this episode is because of your familiarity with the film works of Spike Lee, but also that you made a short film that kind of criticized one of his films.
Yeah. No, it's funny. I can tell you guys a quick story, and I'm not going to be long-winded. Don't worry. When I was in the Air Force back in '86, I was stationed in Korea, and it was my first time being away from home. And then still, the passion in movies and filmmaking was still there, but I just had to get out of Cleveland, get away from the family, and I had to go out and understand what the world was about, being by myself. And so, my mom and dad would still send me stuff, and I never forgot this. And I have it here somewhere. I'm not sure, but it's here still. I have the original magazine from that. I forgot what month it was. It was a spring issue, I think. But Spike Lee was on the cover. She's Got to Have It. And it was something completely 100% new. And my mom sent that to me, and I was in my barracks in Korea, and I got the envelope. I opened it up, and I'm like, Jet Magazine, and who is this guy? And he was on the cover with Tracy Camilla Johns, who plays Norma? No.
Nola.
But yeah. And they're on the cover, and I was like, So I put it on, open and everything. I was reading it. It was a good little article, and they show him sitting in front of a fat flatbed Steenbeck. It was so funny, and I read about it and everything, and they were talking about it. And you guys got to keep in mind, back then there were other Black filmmakers, but we pretty much took it for granted. They're in the business. You had Ted Lang, you had Gordon Parks, you had Michael Schultz, you had there's many of them. But for some reason, this guy kind of stood out. But they were making references to what was doing that was somewhat different. And I kind of, was like, wow, this is really cool. So I'm thinking, okay, we'll see what this guy does next and thing. And so when I was out on when I finally was discharged, I think I saw my first Spike Lee film, which was She's Gotta Have It. And my sister and her friends had a little get together at her house, and one of her friends brought it on VHS, and we all watched it together. And I was thinking, wow, okay. And, and I enjoyed it. They enjoyed it too. We all liked it. It was different. I mean, a lot of people weren't really keen on it because they knew nothing about him, but it was generating already in terms of the media about this new up and coming director. And this was the new renaissance, because this one sales, who else? There was a bunch of indie filmmakers that were blossoming in the early 80s, and Spike Lee caught the tail end of that, and he was being pushed also. So I sort of knew who he was because I had this thing back in '86. And so when we saw that, everybody was like, wow, this is so different. A lot of people were wondering why it was in black and white. And that was funny because these weren't your average movie. These are people that were into mainstream movies. And you got to remember also, these are mainly African-American people that watch blockbuster action movies. And so my sister and her friends, they weren't into the stuff that I was into, especially then. So I was really getting into it. They were just taken by like the jump cuts and all the weird little edits and everything, and in your face shots and all the crazy goofy things he would use. And the thing is, I was totally into that, even though I knew that was nothing original. But for people that weren't used to seeing those kind of films, that was original and that was unique and that was different. And so they were thinking, man, this is crazy, but it's funny. And they were laughing. And it was a well-written film, beautifully shot. Everything about that film I love. That is technically my favorite Spike Lee movie. She's Gotta Have It is way up there. It's one of my favorite films. The funny thing was, I had no idea that was I think officially that was just a regular R version or the edited version, because years later I had another copy, and I can't remember how I got it. A friend of mine dubbed it for me. It was another version of it. I have it on beta right now. I have it on beta. That's how old this was. But I managed to get the uncut version, which is just a little bit longer, not much. Some of the sex scenes are a little bit more, not explicit, but a little bit more lengthier.
Yeah.
Because in the other version that we saw, everything was sort of down. But no, pretty much I was like, wow, this guy is going to be really cool. However, I think a lot of people sort of had issues with the way he depicted or depiction of black women at that time. And so he was already causing some stirs and everything. But that was pretty much my first experience with Spike Lee. But I was a fan. I was really sold on that film. I still think it's a great film. Yeah. But we're going to talk about where we're going next. because the film I saw reminded me of the spirit of the production of She's Gotta Have It. I think he sort of was going in. We'll talk about that. Going in.
Okay. Well, Mike, what was your?
I'm excited here because this is bringing back some memories. So,
well, Mike, what was your first Spike Lee experience?
Yeah. So I was a little bit later to seeing some of his films. I think the first one that I actually saw was Girl 6. Because we got I've told this so many times on here, but we got HBO and that was one of the first movies when they activated the HBO. I believe Girl 6 was playing at like 8 p.m. that night. So watch that.
Oh, day one. Okay.
Yeah. Because it was like they played Booty Call and then Girl 6.
It's a feature, I guess.
A combination.
Right. But no, I was I'd heard a lot, but then eventually saw Do the Right Thing, of course, I think is probably the one that really put him in the mainstream, put him in the forefront, probably like a year or two later. But yeah, always I mean, he's one of those, I think it's one of those like images of the director that because for a while, like the director was the person behind the camera, not so much in front. And it was unique when you start to see that director become like a fashion icon, like always in, like Robert said, like in Jet magazine, stuff like that, because of like the fashion, the kind of hats that he wore, the glasses that he wears, and still continues to do. So yeah, that's what
he was kind of. I was gonna say, not to interrupt. He was kind of like the Elton John of black filmmakers, because the glasses and the hat was that was a signature thing. And So I remember I was saying that. I was also making Woody Allen comparisons too back then. Remember, the other thing I forgot to mention too was back then people actually got a taste of him because of those Nike commercials. Mars Blackman.
Oh yeah.
Nobody can do Air Jordan. Nobody. That was everybody knew him more from that before he became the director. So I just meant to bring that up too. But yeah.
Yeah. How about you, Aaron?
I was thinking of the Nike commercials as well because I knew of him that way before I saw any of his movies. And then once I knew I was going to go to film school, I didn't know I was going to go, but I was like a junior in high school. I'm like, I'm a film geek. I'm going to go. I went to the library, got the video cassette of Do the Right Thing, and I watched that. And it was built up in my head as like, it's going to blow you away. And I was like, wow, I've never seen a movie quite like this.
Yeah.
And it was one of those, it didn't hit me the way it would on like second, third, fourth viewing. But I don't remember the rationale for it other than am a big Scorsese fan. I remember being really excited for Clockers because by the time I'd watched Do the Right Thing, Clockers was like the next movie coming out that he had done. And I remember getting was it Richard Price, the screenwriter? I remember like reading all about him and like I read one of his novels. I was really hyped for that movie for whatever reason. And then I remember going to see that in the theater. I was just like, everybody I saw was like, that was dumb. And I was like, what are you talking about? This is fantastic. So that was the first one I had like an
Clockers or
actual
Do the Right Thing?
Clockers, sorry. Because I was the hype guy in my high school theater group that would be like, all right, guys, get in the car. We're going to see this movie this weekend. And I'd trek them to the Cinematheque or Cedar Lee or somewhere. But I remember taking them all, like we went out to see Clockers and they were just not big fans of it. And I was like, what are you talking about, man? This movie was amazing. So that was my first like theatrical experience, like getting really hyped up and couldn't wait to see a Spike Lee movie like in a theatrical setting. Then once I've revisited Do the Right Thing a number of times over the years, but I always kind of count like my first real like theatrical experience with an audience being Clockers in '95. But
Yeah. I think one of the other things
Yeah.
that's synonymous with him is he's like he's always at the Knicks games. So it's like
oh
he's
right,
right there. Like
Yeah.
right. I mean, I don't watch a lot of basketball, but it's just like that's just the image of him. He's like the Jack Nicholson of New York,
right,
where
the East Coast.
yeah. But yeah, no, I mean, not every film of his, I think, is a complete like home run, but he always does bring like a unique energy, I think, to each script, which sometimes he writes the scripts, but sometimes he does rely on other people to write the scripts.
He's also that type of filmmaker that I really respond to, and I'm guessing you do too, Robert, because you just mentioned being a film snob, and I consider myself to be a film snob or film geek, however you want to say it. But Spike Lee is also one of those directors who's also like was also an instructor. He teaches film. He loves film. He loves the medium. Anytime he has an interview, he's recommending 8 to 10 other movies that you got to go see. And I really respond well to filmmakers that are also the film geeks out there too.
Yeah. He was well versed. He's totally well versed in world cinema and all that
Yeah.
stuff. And I know he was doing a lot of he had the multiple interns out of NYU. In fact, my late sister's coworker's daughter interned with him
Nice.
years ago. This was back like when she was still in film school at NYU. And it's fun to mention about seeing him theatrically. My first, because that when I saw She's Got a Habit, that was once good. My sister's friends in a VHS in a living
Right.
room. But my first theatrical film was School Days. We can't forget School Days.
Oh yeah, yeah.
And I remember reading about that when that was being made too and everything. And I think a lot of his films, seeing it in a theatrical environment with a good crowd.
Mhm.
School Days was like that. And I'll just go ahead and bring this up now to get it out of the way. My experience with Do the Right Thing was very unique because we went to a special advanced screening of it before it was released at Case Western at Strosacker,
Oh, nice.
and it was 90% Black, all students, and there was some white folks there too and everything, and we saw it, and I'll just leave, lack of a better word, we were all blown away. However, there was a lot of debate about what the film meant, and the audience was kind of split. There are people that thought it was a masterpiece, and there are people that were quiet, and some of us was like, this was good, but what was a great experience. Then a few years later, the next film was Mo Better Blues,
Mhm.
which when I get a break, I actually had a show and tell. I was sitting over here, I forgot to grab it. But it's a souvenir from the Mo Better Blues screening, but it was the same thing. It was an advanced screening.
Yeah.
It was released, and everybody was excited and pumped up. It was the same thing, and so the crowd played a big part of that. When the film aren't as strong as you, because once again, as a film snob, you want to be a well-rounded cinema, and
Yeah.
into the politics, the acting, the script, the cinematography, and he handles that, but it's not as perfectly balanced as it would be. And I think the bigger he got, this became a problem. Now, a lot of people disagree with me. I think Mo Better Blues is technically brilliant. I just love that film and the music great and what his trademarks work. But there are things about the film that didn't work, and that's the reason why I can't stand that. It does. I can't watch it. I can watch it with the volume down, or I can, or I don't know. It's just that film had
Yeah.
issues, and I think he tried to. She's got to have it route with the narrative from the flip side with a guy, and this was his first movie with Denzel Washington. So I don't know. I think that's technically one of my first films I had real issues with as far as Spike Lee,
Oh,
but
interesting.
because
Okay.
his first three, I'm like big time, love him. But
Yeah.
after that, but yeah, but seeing these films theatrically, I think plays a big part in that, and you can tell he's in terms of on the big screen and all that, and his stuff has a high value for that.
Well, I wanted to mention too, the last episode we did was on Oscar snubs, and it did kind of occur to me that like Spike Lee now has one for best was adapted screenplay for Black Klansman, but like
Correct.
Spike Lee as a filmmaker, looking at the totality of his filmography, he's won one Oscar for best adapted screenplay. I was like, what are we doing here?
Yeah. No,
Lack
I
of
mean,
nominations in general too, but come on.
yeah, I think he's in that company of filmmakers like a Tarantino who have won for writing, but
Yeah.
inexplicably have not won for directing. And yeah, it's very interesting. I mean, and I know it was probably controversial at the time when Do the Right Thing was not nominated for director or picture.
Not that that's the only thing that matters in a directing career, but
Right.
someone who has been operating within Hollywood for as many decades as he has now he has like the one best adapted screenplay Oscar, but he's got an honorary Oscar, but has never been like gotten the actual gold for any number of quality projects.
Why do you guys think that is?
I would defer to Mike because I don't know the Oscar history as well.
Yeah, I thought the year that Black Klansman was up, I thought potentially he was gonna win. I'm trying to remember exactly what other, it might have been Roma was up for it, I think. Which, I mean, it's a great film. Alfonso Cuarón, though, had already won. I mean, it could have been the opportunity to finally award an African American as best director. But I don't know. I think maybe sometimes because he could be synonymous with New York, sometimes it tends to be some of those New York type filmmakers sometimes get overlooked for some reason, even though Woody Allen has won quite a few. But I think that could be it.
Yeah, it took Scorsese a while too.
Yeah,
Other New
and like
York.
sometimes he's like a
Yeah,
controversial. He can be a controversial figure. So, in some of the things that he says in like interviews, and who knows, like maybe he might have caused some sour.
that's what I was leaning towards. Yeah, I mean,
I was like, you never know.
no, years ago, that was my big issue with Spike Lee because I think as a director, yeah, I mean, you got to build this mystique and this idea of how to direct, and you have a run us with an iron fist, and you got to, but at the same time, the whole racism, white establishment, all this stuff, that stuff was getting old. I mean, I know I sound like an Uncle Tom saying this, but the few years of him directing a movie and he would speak out about that, okay, that was fine. But afterwards, that got old. And I think my big problem with that is he expresses that in the film. He already makes his point in the films that he makes. So it's like, why are you going to get out there and start trashing the establishment when you're already making a point in your movies too? And I just felt that I think the powers that be pretty much, they like what he has to say because he makes money, or at least he was making. And I know people who are watching this are probably going to be like, this fool doesn't know what he's talking about. The majority of Spike Lee's audience is white. I mean, a lot of white people love his stuff. I had a lot of friends that were African American that liked it too, but it was mainly white folks that liked his stuff more so than a lot of black folks. A lot of black folks, this stuff was either too weird, too pretentious, too preachy. That's why I think the earlier films had a balance because you had that, but there was enough narrative and enough pride about that was there. After a while, it was just getting to the point where, okay, dude, we know this, I mean, and so once again, you guys are a lot of people that disagree about this, but I just felt that when he got hit to a certain level of in the industry, it was all of a sudden this thing about, oh, we are the people and we got everything. Okay, dude, direct, don't preach. Preach to your direct and preach your storytelling, but quit beating us over the head with it. And the film I just saw earlier, luckily had less of that in it, but it was still there. But no, I mean, I keep wondering if that was one of the reasons why he didn't really get any type of Oscar escalades earlier on, because there were several films I think he probably could have got an Oscar for, but if he would have just eased up on that.
Robert, do you remember what you texted me the night that he won his Oscar?
Oh yeah, yeah, and you saw how he was acting, right? And you saw how he was behaving, right? Okay, let me say this too. Once again, I'm gonna get a lot of hate response for this. I think if Spike Lee was, you just throw me under the bus. Okay, it's happened already.
That's all right.
I think I always felt that once again, if Spike Lee was more of a humble person, if this Napoleon complex, he's a little guy, but this whole ego thing about, I'm the king of the world type thing. I mean, Grant, he wants to be James Cameron. Whatever, dude. It's like, but that Oscar, and I never forgot that. We're like, dude, okay, you won. Congrats. You earned it. Even though this wasn't he really wrote, it was an adapted story, but he got something. But it was like, stop the world. Spike Lee won an Oscar. And then we had to hear that for like over 2. And it just made me kind of not lose respect for him. But it's like, dude, is this what it's all about? It's like, you had ages, you do this film that really isn't your story, and yet you get an Oscar, and looking like he's the great candy bar man, whatever. Look, that outfit wore.
Oh, I remember that. Oh, I know what you mean. Yeah, I could picture that outfit.
Or some type of streetcar conductor for like a great pop. I don't know. I just remember that outfit he wore looked like he worked at Willy Wonka or somewhere.
It's like from a MGM Technicolor musical.
I never forgot that outfit. That outfit was like, dude, what are you doing? But anyway, I just really feel that there's so many filmmakers that you don't hear them making a big deal about stuff. And Spike Lee's got to have the big mouth of the industry saying, white man this and people this, and we got it this, and we know this stuff. Tell us something. Stop preaching to the choir, man. So anyway, so yeah, that night, the Oscars, that was a joke. And I was texting you. You still have those texts?
I think so. Yeah, I think you said sit down, Spike.
Yeah, I did say sit down. Gosh, that was annoying. I mean, I'm glad he won, but at the same time, dude, it's like I issue with people with egos. And directors, I mean, James Cameron's bad enough. But I'm sorry.
No, it's fine. I was going to say there's kind of 2 parts to that. One is also a good segue to we'll go into our honorable mention picks here in a second, but the fact that he's also front and center in She's Gotta Have It as an actor.
Yes.
And then the Mars Blackman,
which was fine.
Mentioned. Yeah, totally. Yeah. And I'm not begrudging him for his career paths whatsoever, but you also have a director now who's also clearly comfortable, if not wanting to be in front of the camera, to perform a role, to do a performance. So I think that's a different mix than if you're, looking at, just trying to think of the other New York, like we were saying, like, well, Woody Allen's sort of the same way in his own, but he's cultivated his own persona. Scorsese isn't really in front of the camera acting, another New York filmmaker, kind of just puts it in his films and doesn't even.
Are we going by New York filmmakers or filmmakers in general, though?
I was thinking more like New York filmmakers because I was thinking New York is so like tied to Spike Lee in my head.
So we're going by strictly New York thing because you got to put John Cassavetes in there if that's the case.
Oh, no, yeah, absolutely. Right.
Yeah. Yeah. And you got Abel Ferrara. He did it before Spike Lee.
Or even one of his remakes, Bill Gunn. Yeah, you got Bill Gunn's in front of the camera.
Yeah, exactly. Oh, yeah. Big time.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I guess what it is, too, is like as a director, I always saw him as being this personality in front of the camera, which is fine. But it's like, in many ways, I guess what it is that I always saw him as a director first and as an actor second.
Yeah, me too.
As a director first, he had control to put himself in all these movies. And some of these films, I don't think he needed to be in them. Personally, I don't think he was my one issue with Malcolm X. He was my issue with that because he was annoying in that. He was annoying in Mo Better Blues. He was great. She's got to and do the right thing. But then other films, I'm like, dude, it's like, okay. I don't know. I mean, Clint Eastwood didn't have to be in all his films either. And I just think as directors, they so often can't they direct more instead of trying to be a personality within, unless it's a character that nobody else wants to play. I can see that. And there's been directors that have done that. So, anyway. I can see Aaron's not going to have me on here again.
No. I love it. Because one of the things I love about Spike Lee is that he's got all these different layers to it where like, I don't love everything he's done, but I'm fascinated by everything he does. And I'm going to watch it and I'm going to, wrestle with it. And I like that.
I was fascinated. After a while, the magic sort of tapered off, but that's.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Now, like I said, there's a lot of people that know me say, oh, Robert hates Spike Lee. It's like, no, I don't hate Spike Lee. It's just that I don't see him being this iconic, innovative, groundbreaking asset to cinema for African American. I don't see that. No, Melvin Van Peebles or Gordon Parks, Bill Gunn, Charles Burnett, Julie Dash, people like that,
Yeah.
they deserve just as much, if not more, hype than Spike Lee. But Spike is like me, 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 me. It was that kind of thing, and it's just that got old when the films kept being generically preachy, and that's my big issue. Aside from that, no, I've been a fan. I'm not to be 25 years ago.
Gotcha.
Put it that way.
Yeah. No, I love your approach to it, Robert. It's very refreshing, but it's also kind of how I feel in the back of my head, because I would end up being labeled as like the Spike Lee fan. Like I was working at Cedar Lee for years and years when we played several of his movies. And like, oh, Aaron's really, you must be excited. New Spike. I'm like, I am, but like, I don't love everything he does. I'm very curious about what he's going to do. And enough of the time, I think he hits out of the park for me that I'm like, I'm on board. And I also, like I mentioned, just also being a film geek, anytime he does an interview, I'm like, I got 5 more recommendations of things to watch. And I think I also enjoy filmmakers who are very prolific the way he is. I enjoy, Thomas Anderson or Claire Denis or something, because they're very exact with what they're making. But I also like the fact that Spike Lee just kind of exercising that filmmaking muscle. Like, and could be diminishing returns. Maybe he's a little thin, some years. But I like the passion that he's got for it, if not the actual films a lot of the time as well. The Oscar thing was interesting because my honorable mention pick is a very divisive film of his, but it's one that I adore, flaws and all, because I'm a huge fan of Network. I think that's one of the great American films in my list, probably like top 10 American films. Bamboozled.
Well, see, I knew you were going to say that. I knew you were going to
say the Oscar thing. Yeah, because then when they have there's like a parody Oscar scene that happens with Matthew Modine in that one that is, I think it's a kind of like Spike Lee's interpretation of the Ving Rhames Jack Lemmon. It was at the Golden Globes, I think.
Oh,
Ving Rhames won for the Don King HBO movie, and then he handed it off to Lemmon, who he was running against. It seemed like Spike was commenting directly on that situation, but within Bamboozled, I mean, obviously he's commenting on a lot more than that, but having that one specific award scene in Bamboozled, I was like, that just happened like a year ago in an actual award show. But I'm not sure. Yeah. I mean, he that movie is overloaded with social commentary and a lot of interesting aspects. But you being a filmmaker and a cinematographer, I wanted to ask you, his use of switching to digital video in Bamboozled, I thought was really interesting as a way to shoot the film. I really like the aesthetic, but I think it's also a kind of it's an interesting visual look for some people who don't care for that movie too much.
With Bamboozled, okay, years ago, you guys know who Austin Allen was, right? He ran the film department at CSU. Austin Allen. He's no longer there, but this was back when CSU was evolving with their film curriculum and everything, and he was like our crusading professor. He's a great guy. They meet Austin Allen, Rafiq R.A. Washington. You know him?
Yes.
Yeah.
He's a poet. Okay, anyway, another great guy. Those guys and me, they gave us a special private screening of Bamboozled because
oh wow,
I already knew the film was shot digitally, and already I knew, okay, well, he's playing on the whole dogma thing, because that was the hot item, was the whole dogma 95 thing. And I'm like, that's cool, whatever. But I had a hunch that was not going to work for this film. And that I'm a huge fan of, and a filmmaker that I'm a huge fan of, is Robert Downey Sr. You ever seen Putney Swope?
Oh yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
To me, Bamboozled was Spike Lee going into Putney Swope territory.
I see that.
So I already knew, okay, well, already, dude, the bar is really high, so this better be great. The first half of Bamboozled was brilliant. I loved it, despite the quality. Could not like the video thing. I really wish he would have mixed formats with that, but that's one issue.
Yeah.
And that part with the awards, that was great. Everything up there was Damon Wayans was having these hallucinations and feeling the guilt, and all this preachy crap got thrown into it. That sucked. Everything that was great in the first half was ruined by the last act. The last act alone ruined that entire film, and I can't watch that film again. I cannot watch Bamboozled. I just thought it was once again, it was this heavy hand. The film should have just ended with this thing taken off. Everybody in the country should have been wearing blackface. And he could have went all the way with the I can't say I won't say the N word, but when he was doing the N word, you're in it. That was all right. And all of this was like, well, I'm betraying this and all this, and what have I done? And it's like, no, dude. And then the doors are coming up. I'm like, it was just, once again, everything that was great. All of a sudden, you're gonna be preaching and sugarcoat it in a way that's just so. It was almost as if, once again, it's like he's gonna turn say, this is what we gotta be. No, dude, you made your point. End it right there because the film was way too long at that point. It was just, I don't know. I really wish they would have shot that on film because I think the visuals in that film, if you look at that film now, it looks so.
Yeah.
When people were shooting the digital stuff back then, was anybody thinking about that? Because I'm thinking you got a topic here that you want generators to see. Why don't you shoot it like this?
Yeah.
You know, there were so many things he could have shot that black and white. He could have shot it in different formats. He could play with the 8mm form. He was so many things he could have done, but a still photo montage, anything. But I was something like Zelig would have been cool with the whole vintage stuff. Anything, but why digital video? And that was a tremendous missed effort. I have a lot of issues with that film. And the sad thing is, it could have been a masterpiece. That film could have been a phenomenal benchmark in cinema, and he dropped the ball. That's my personal. And funny because a lot of people that I knew once again thought that he hit the nail on the head. That, but I'll ask him, if you watch that film now, will you get the same impact from it? And they have to think about that. I'm thinking, no, you wouldn't, because
right.
And I saw that in the theater on top of that, and that made it all the more awkward to watch because it just looked like someone was doing this sort of surveillance video of this agency, this whole black thing. So I don't know. I mean, but
well, especially in 2000, you saw it theatrically. You were seeing it. You've seen it in a theater in 2000. You're seeing it projected on film at that point too.
Yeah.
So it's another like extra layer of like weirdness to it. Yeah. I mean, parts of the film it worked, but not as an entire. I think you're right.
Format. No, there are moments where montage that would have been spot on, but yeah.
Especially because it's about a TV show, like just do the TV show segments as the digital video parts or something. Like you said, multiple formats here would have really, really, really helped. Yeah. Well, what honorable mention film do you have for us, Robert?
Aside from the first three, like I said, She's Gotta Have It, School Days, Do the Right Thing. Those are like way up there for me. As far as honorable mention in terms of something really great that I think he may have done that, I don't know. That's kind of tough because see, I've yet to see a film of his after those three that I loved.
Okay.
I like Girl 6, but I can't say I loved it, but I like it a lot. But I don't know. I mean, when it comes to recent Spike Lee films, I mean, everything I've seen after those first three, nothing related. I don't know. I can't say I've seen a recent Spike. This deserves honorable mention. It's like, yeah.
Do you have one, Mike?
Well, yeah, I'm gonna actually use one of his most recent ones that might have been overlooked just because of the pandemic, but I was a real big fan of Da 5 Bloods. I was actually kind of surprised by some of the muted response to it. Like especially like when it came to awards times, I thought the ensemble was great. Like Delroy Lindo, I thought should have been nominated for an Academy Award for his performance in that movie. And I think this is the second war film that Spike Lee put out because he did one in like the late 2000s. That was I think it takes place in Vietnam.
Saint Anna.
World War II, Santa Anna.
Yeah. But I thought this one with the ensemble and getting some great work actually from Chadwick Boseman, which I think like he passed away right before it was released. I was actually I was really moved by it, and I thought it was, despite its kind of long length, I was kind of glued to my set when it came on, when I was watching it. But it's one of those ones where I wish it would have been in a theater, because I would have loved that experience. But I don't think that it's probably not in the cards.
Was that shot digitally or in film? 5 Bloods.
That's a good question. I'll have to look that up. But to me,
I want to say he shot that on digital. I might be wrong.
Yeah, to me it looked like it might have been too polished, so it probably was digital.
Says it uses 4 aspect ratios as a framing device per location. 1331 on 16mm film, mimicking newsreels, and then
he makes
so like kind of
format. That's what it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. The modern scenes were all shot digitally.
Yeah.
And some brief use of Super 8 as well.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Who's playing around with a lot of Super 8 stuff. Yeah.
So basically, the format you wish you would have done on Bamboozled, he did with Da 5 Bloods, like play with formats and all that exactly. So
Yeah, and this other film that I'm going to talk about in a minute. But yeah, he did that also. No, apparently he definitely was a big fan of shooting with 16 and Super 8.
Sometimes when you get that Netflix money, I guess you can do a little more experimenting.
Yeah, that's true. I say, I'm just curious, how do you guys feel about his remake of Old Boy?
I did not watch that one.
I did see that one. I thought I was more interested in Josh Brolin's central performance. I thought Brolin was doing a pretty good job there. But at the end of the movie, I was just sort of like, why did we remake this one? But it was
Was there
solid.
anything
Like,
about that you thought was unique in terms of his signature, or or did it look like something that he just did on the fly?
It's been a while since I only saw it the one time, and it's been a minute since I've seen it. But yeah, I don't remember having like a real like, oh, you put your own take on this kind of feeling about it. It was sort of maybe like an intellectual like film exercise of some point. Now, the Sweet Blood of Jesus, which like it's no Ganja and Hess by any means, but I thought he was trying to do something on a unique there on his own, and like putting his own spin on it. But I don't remember feeling that with Old Boy.
Okay, see, I need to see that his thing on Ganja. I want to see that one.
I saw Ganja and Hess at the Cinematheque on film, and I was like, well, now's the time to watch The Sweet Blood of Jesus. So I watched it within a couple of days of each other, which was probably not the best way to do that. But
yeah, I'm sorry I missed that actually, because that would have been great.
Well, what's the film you picked then, Robert? What did you watch for this particular watch challenge for Spike Lee?
Okay, well, like this DVD was given to me years ago, and I never had the motivation to watch it because I knew it was shot digitally. But when you guys approached me for this, or Mike mentioned, "Hey, is there a film of his you haven't seen?" That I was like, actually, I have this one here that I Red Hook Summer.
Oh, nice.
Hold up. This is your grandson. This is your grandfather.
There's some shady people up here. This is not Atlanta. You understand?
Yes.
Good.
We live in a world of should not be. It should not be that radio and television and movies define who our boys are.
Working today over at the Little Heaven.
It's my summer vacation.
Your summer vacation has work in it.
Ooh.
80% unemployment around here.
I got a crazy family. You and me both.
There's somebody in this holy sanctuary who needs Jesus. Come on now, step up. Who does that person need?
Jesus. You embarrass me.
You need Jesus in your life, son.
He has to respect me too. You gotta compromise with him. He's old school, okay?
Flick needs a man, not a bishop, not a Bible, but a man. And when the good man teaches, the Bible will preach itself.
Did you see this?
I haven't seen it, but it was actually the one when I was thinking about watching for this episode, but I have never seen Red Hook Summer. So,
And Mike, you never saw it.
No, I have not seen it.
Well, I guess this is a time frame when he started doing these smaller films because backing from American financing, I guess, and so he started doing these smaller budget movies. And this was one of the Red Hook series that he was doing, a Red Hook trilogy, I guess. Not a bad film. Not great, but definitely going back to the roots of what made his earlier film special, especially She's Gotta Have It.
mm-hmm.
But it's sort of a coming of age film, but it has a real dark spin on it. A lot about living in the projects and people that are so grounded with, and the flip side of that, or the darker side of the whole clergy within the Black community. I don't want to give too much away. Once again, if I had to criticize it, the video quality, this was 2011, so and I forgot what they used, a Sony camera, I believe, when they shot this, but they went out of the way to grade it really rich, so the colors and everything are what you would see in the earlier films, so it had the quality to do the right thing and all that. Not to give this away, say spoiler alert, whatever they say.
Sure.
Mookie is in this film. He plays Mookie in this.
Oh, wow.
For like a hot second. He comes in and out delivering pizzas, and they say, "Hey, Mookie, you still delivering pizzas?" He's like, "Yeah, gotta get paid." The whole nine. That's in here. But it was kind of like a little cute cameo. The funny thing is, Mookie aged. You can tell he's aging, and it's like he's still delivering pizzas. But aside from that, yeah, it was shot digitally. But there are a couple of quick montages, 8mm film shot on Super 8.
Oh,
and that's
nice.
throughout the movie, especially for the ending. So, but overall, not a bad film. I just thought once again he gets preachy at times and he gets 20 minutes were way over the top. There's segments that were like I want to see a minute or two too long. It's just montage, which the soundtrack's actually pretty good, but once again, there's the music playing and someone's doing a little solo. This didn't bother me as much. But if I had to give the film any criticism aside from that, with the acting, I would say the kids are their lines felt kind of forced or like they were reading. It was very staged. It was like community theater.
Oh, okay.
And I don't know how this would come off saying this, but we have those shows that would play at the Playhouse on a weekend, and all the family come out of church, they go to the theater to see those shows. They call it Chitlin Circuit type stuff. This kind of came off as that a little, but not in a bad way, too. But it's definitely one of those films where if he would have went on if he would have went the extra mile, this would have been a good family movie. But it has some moments that are pretty extreme, and that's how I got the R rating.
Oh, okay.
Because aside from there's 2 or 3 scenes, aside from that, this could have been a G-rated movie. But I don't want to give it away. But the last act of the film reveals something really meant and sick.
Okay.
Which is sad and tragic. But it's worth seeing. I mean, I was impressed. I mean, I kind of wish he would make more films of this caliber with this kind of scaled budget. At the same time, I can see this not being a big crowd pleaser because the film has sort of a downer aspect to the overall. It's not a bad film. It's a sweet little coming of age film, but
yeah,
definitely it's got its minor
quibbles. Okay.
Yeah.
Thing out of this. Oh, what was the other one? Crooklyn. If you like Crooklyn.
Oh, Crooklyn.
Like
yeah. Okay. Actually, like a fantasy path for Spike Lee's career that he could have done, since you mentioned Cassavetes earlier, I would have loved to seen Spike every like 4 or 5 years just go off with like, because he clearly has a crew of friends that are actors. He's worked with the same cinematographers, editors over the years. Terrence Blanchard's in there. Like, hey guys, we're doing 3 weeks, $50,000. We're making a movie, and just like do one of those, make a.
Yeah, I would love to see that.
That'd be amazing.
Yeah, this was like that, except he didn't have Ernest Dickerson. He didn't have Terrence Blanchard. He didn't have none of those guys.
See, that's intriguing to me because it's kind of like almost outside of his comfort zone, it sounds like.
Exactly, yeah. I mean, because I remember back, if he could redo She's Gotta Have It, he would, or he would. He just didn't feel that film was really, that film doesn't demonstrate what his skills really were. And I disagree. I think, dude, that film it's pure filmmaking. This is actually pure filmmaking, even though no, I just think certain filmmakers, if they're really good, you can take away all their bells and whistles and their studio budget and all that stuff and give them a real crew and just get in there and do it the true indie way. And this film definitely had that. And that's what I miss about a lot of his films. I think that's what I love about it. It was all about that. And every element of those characters you were even more engaged with because it was so real. And this film had that too. But when you start seeing Denzel Washington and all these other name actors and all, something gets lost. And to me, that's been a big test for good filmmakers when you can make a film with name actors and you forget you're seeing really caught up into the characters. Yeah. But when you keep saying, oh, Denzel, oh yeah, Wesley Snipes, oh yeah, it's like, those are distractions that to me are like tricky because you really got to be able to push that narrative and bring these characters to life instead of just making it an all-star ensemble. That was another problem I had with Mo' Better Blues because that was a total ensemble of all his actors, but characters I didn't believe because I saw Giancarlo Esposito, I saw Bill Nunn. I didn't see jazz music who's made up to look like jazz. But that's what made this film so special because it was a no-name cast. These people have been in smaller films and probably a lot of community theater, but that really worked out for the acting wise. I don't know if that was intentional, but it definitely came off being very low-key, low-profile, very border micro-budget filmmaking.
Yeah.
Because parts of the film look like, somebody in Cleveland could have made this. Not that I'm knocking Cleveland filmmaking. Red Hook Summer, I highly recommend this. So if you like Spike Lee, you want to see what Spike Lee could do on a bare bones budget, check.
I do.
Excellent. Aaron, what did you pick?
So one of the things we haven't mentioned at all yet with Spike Lee's filmography is his prolific documentary work, which I find interesting and varied, if kind of odd sometimes. And I went through and was kind of like charting them to see what I had missed. Being a former theater nerd from high school and college, I was like, oh, maybe I'll do Passing Strange, or I'd actually watched the Rodney King one. And I'd seen Passover. It's been a while, but I was like, no, I'm doing a watch challenge. I want something I hadn't seen before. The big gap in his documentary films that I hadn't seen was the original Kings of Comedy.
Oh.
Over 1 million screaming fans. 113 electrifying minutes. And the 4 kings of comedy.
What are you gonna do for excitement today? I'm gonna drive past the police and pull my wallet out and hope I don't get shot 41 times. If I drop my wallet in front of the police, I know the rules now. I will not pick that up. I'll kick it all the way home.
The original Kings of Comedy. The most successful comedy tour ever.
Oh, we about to make a little change up in here.
Now, MTV Films and Latham Entertainment present a Spike Lee joint.
It's like that big movie that came out, the Titanic. You saw the movie? The band was playing as the ship went down. What black band you know gonna keep playing with the damn ship going down? Kool and the Gang would have been unplugged. Jesus' first miracle was turning water into wine at a wedding. Lord, we done ran out of wine. Well, y'all know normally I don't do this, but go ahead and keep the party going.
Talking about we want a black president. Come on, y'all, now, we got Clinton that's close. He got Negro tendencies, but
I like white people. When they go on break on the job, they go to their desk, they eat their cheese sandwich. 15 minutes, they back on the job. My people, when we go on break, we break. You seen Johnny?
The original Kings of Comedy.
And I really dig I like stand-up comedy a lot. Everything from, Raw. I've watched a bunch of the George Carlin stuff. So I was like, okay, I'm fairly familiar with this stand-up comedy concert film kind of format to it. Mm-hmm. I really, really like this one. And I really only thought 2 of the comics were funny. It's just, humor is so specific and it's so hard. So like if you had focused only on one comic and I didn't care for it, I mean, I could still evaluate it as a film, but like, I'm not going to be as into the comedy. Steve Harvey is just a spectacular MC in this one. And his crowd work is just dynamite. And then at the end, Bernie Mac coming out, like I was just cry laughing with some of his routines.
Yeah.
But what Spike did, like he stuck to the format. It's about the performers. It's about the jokes, but it's also stand-up comedy films. The best ones, I think, are also about the audience. And he had great camera placement in the audience to kind of capture it. At one point, Steve Harvey even was talking about like how he's old school, and then they started playing music that he loves, and he's kind of dancing on stage, and they have the cameras placed just right to catch people in the audience who are, they're like, oh my God, this song, and they're up and dancing. And it really captured like the whole, like the beauty of stand-up comedy when it really does involve the audience. There's some crowd work being done. You can see the crowd's really into it. And he only had a couple of scenes of like backstage or the guys that were on tour kind of just talking, or I think they're hanging out around a basketball court at one point. So maybe I would say maybe a little bit more like backstage or like on the tour kind of stuff that I would have liked. But for the most part, I was like, no, it's a focus on comedy. It's a focus on these performers. If you don't think somebody's funny, wait 15 minutes. You got another comedian coming right up. And I don't know how I missed it when it came out originally, because it was playing for a while.
Yeah,
it was.
It was a big box office hit.
I'm just curious, who are your least favorite comedians in that? I'm just curious because I've heard people tell me different stories.
I'm not a big deal Hugh Lee fan. I didn't care for his show too much. Like, he's a fine comic. It's just it wasn't resonating with me. And Cedric the Entertainer is a funny guy, and I appreciate him. I think he's a little bit better when I've seen him be more off the cuff or doing kind of more MC work or crowd work. And it was a little too, it was structured, and I was like, it was fine, but because it was punctuated by Harvey coming out every so often, I was just like, I'm kind of just waiting for Steve Harvey's next bit when he comes back out. But it was not like it's bad comedy. It wasn't hitting for me. So I was like, oh, I'll just wait for the next one. It's fine. I mean, I still chuckled here and there, and it's still funny through and through. I think I could see some of the jokes set up a little bit more with Hugh Lee than with the other comedians, but no, solid production. Obviously that's a digitally shot one because it's multiple cameras covering the different angles and stuff. You could also tell too, I think it was Bernie Mac's energy on stage. The camera a couple of times just wasn't keeping up with where he was going. And you can tell like, oh, they got to cut over to this scene, and then somebody's like zooming in real quick. but it captured the energy of that, I thought, in a really really fascinating way.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I would recommend that one. It's it's a good laugh, solid documentary work as far as capturing a stand-up comedy concert. So
Yeah,
pretty solid, pretty solid. It was also kind of weird at the beginning to see the MTV Films logo, actually.
Oh yeah.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I'd forgotten that they were doing films there for a little while, but yeah, it's MTV Films production. I forget who they partnered with, but yeah, it was like, oh wow,
I think they're
pretty
really
Wow, I
much,
forgot that too. Yeah, I
Yeah.
remember they had I forgot all about that.
they're only like in name only with the Jackass movies pretty much now.
Oh yeah, that's about it now. But also then too, it kind of being, 'cause I've already mentioned like Scorsese a couple times, like you've got King of Comedy, and I know, Spike Lee and Scorsese are friends. And I was like, oh, so this is an interesting, is it a twist on the King of Comedy 80s movie that Scorsese did?
Yeah, I remember
going back and switching out the original Kings of Comedy.
Well, it's funny. I always wondered what that title meant when they said the original Kings of Comedy, because I'm thinking, well, if you're going to go with the originals, to me, it would have been Lenny Bruce, Pryor, and Rick Fox.
Oh, sure. Yeah,
and
yeah.
Rudy Ray Moore, someone like that.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
So I don't know. It just, I always wondered what he meant by that. But those guys aren't funny. I mean, these newer guys, it's just, but I'm just thinking, why did he say the original?
I'm not even sure if it's something that he titled, because it was at the end of their tour. They already were touring under that label, I think. And then so then it was like, well, let's film the finale here. So
just call it that.
Yeah. Well, how about you, Mike? What did you watch for this challenge?
In honor of our guest, I wanted to watch something that I had never seen before, and it was Malcolm X from 1992, anchored by the great performance by Denzel Washington.
He was a pusher, a hustler, a thief.
You ready to tackle the streets? Yeah, I'm ready. Let him come.
He was loved, respected, convicted.
State your number, little. I forgot it.
In a dream that's divine.
He was a prisoner who set himself free.
A Muslim must be strikingly upright. I will not touch the white man's drugs, his liquor, his women, so that those in the darkness can see the power of the light. I will not lie, cheat, or steal.
I believe you will remain faithful. Yes. He was a follower who became a leader.
You're not an American. We didn't land on Plymouth Rock. Plymouth Rock landed on us.
He brought honor to disobedience.
I suggest you look outside that window.
You've been laying down and bowing down for 400 years. I think it's time to stand up.
All right, break it up. You got what you wanted.
No, I'm not satisfied.
That's too much power for one man to have.
And a voice to a people who longed to be heard.
You've been hoodwinked, bamboozled, led astray.
The movie follows Malcolm. At first he was known as Red, kind of like
Red,
like a petty thief, and then it follows like his path to becoming into the civil rights movement. And the movie, I believe the movie is fairly good, but I'm somebody who I do not usually complain about length for films, but I felt just the pacing of the film, especially in the first hour, I thought it picked up once he gets into prison, but that first hour where you're starting to get to know him a little bit, it's a little bit. It's like, come on, Spike, come on, get to it. Like let's get to the point a little bit.
Yeah.
But no, I mean, I think that the production value is really great. You could tell that it was still done on probably, a modest budget, but they were able to do things to show off the time period and everything. And I thought some pretty good supporting work. Angela Bassett, I thought gave some pretty good work in there. And I will agree, Spike's character in the film was a little bit, he was almost there as like
annoying.
I guess.
I thought he was annoying. But
Right. Yeah, you could say that. But honestly, you know, I could see it's like that was probably his, even though I would, you know, Do the Right Thing was released by a major studio, this seemed to be like his graduation to studio style filmmaking, you know, having a larger budget. And you know, I mean, Denzel Washington obviously was already, you know, well established by that point, but I think really put him in the pantheon, like the, you know, that top tier of performances with this film. So I'm giving, you know, Malcolm X a recommendation, but I would say like you might want to. I first tried to watch it at night, you know, at like 11 o'clock. That was not
that's not the right time.
I was gonna say I would say maybe people may want to, if you're gonna watch it on DVD, maybe watch one half one afternoon or evening, and then the other half. But watch it all the way through. Because you know, I would consider that film pretty much an epic, because that's what he was going for.
Right.
And I would say, unless you're gonna be in a formal theatrical environment, that's not what to watch in your room, unless you're really dedicated to go all the way. If you're not, you're going to be distracted, don't try to sit through it. Because the beginning part, I agree with you, it's slow, but I think it was necessary for what he was. I agree, yeah,
you're right. It's almost like the roller coaster. It's like,
yes,
you know, then it finally does get its groove, you know. But yeah, I was I'm glad to finally like check that one off the list. It's one that's always like been you know, on my long-term watch list. And, you know, as always with this podcast, I'm glad that it finally kind of gave me the kick in the ass to
Get
watch
that one done.
Yeah, exactly.
That one is still on my to watch list. I own it. It's sitting right over there. Have not actually put it in the DVD or put it in the Blu-ray player yet.
Yeah, I've heard the Criterion, the Criterion that they just put out is pretty magnificent, you know, as far as archival and you know, all that stuff.
Fully restored and all that. Nice.
Yeah.
All right. Well, someday I will get to that one.
If that ever plays theatrically, I would go see it.
Oh, for sure. Yeah. So our official Watch Challenge picks for Spike Lee films are, we had Robert, the Red Hook Summer, got myself with the original Kings of Comedy, and we've got Mike with Malcolm X. Robert, thank you so much for joining us, discussing kind of the works of Spike Lee in general, but also a couple of the films in particular.
Thanks for having me. We should do this again sometime. I won't talk as much next time, though.
Oh, that's all right.
Oh, we like
it's meant to be discussed.
I won't bitch and moan like I do.
Well, Mike, before we sign off, what challenge do we have in front of us for next time?
So recently, a film that just came out called Infinity Pool. When it played at Sundance, it was rated NC-17. When it came out in theaters a few days later, it was rated R. But I figured it might be kind of fun to, you know, do a challenge of NC-17 films. You know, that rare rating that you know, only comes out once a year, maybe, you know.
Yeah, if that.
Sometimes twice. Yeah.
Excellent. NC-17. Well, if you'd like to send us your picks for NC-17 or suggest a topic or genre you'd like covered on a future show, it's watchchallengepodcast@gmail.com, or follow any of the links that we have here in the show notes.
Until next time, folks, rate and review the show in whatever podcast app you're using, and we'll see you with the next challenge.